Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamana Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivitakacharya Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gopimanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 49, Canto 10, Chapter 13. Angri Mastakam Apurnas Tulasi Navadama Bihi Komalai Sarvagatreshu Bodhi Punyavad Arpitai Angri Mustakam Apurnas Tulasi Navadama Bihi Komalai Sarvagatreshu Bodhi Punyavad Arpitai Angri Mustakam Apurnas Tulasi Navadama Bihi Komalai Sarvagatreshu Bodhi Punyavad Arpitai Tulasi Navadama Bihi Komalai Sarvagatreshu Angri Mustakam from the feet up to the top of the head. Apurna fully decorated. Tulasi Navadama Bihi with garlands of fresh tulasi flowers, leaves. Kamalai tender or soft. Sarva Gatreshu on all the limbs of the body. Bodhi Punyavat Arpitai, which were offered by devotees engaged in the greatest pious activity, worshipping the Supreme Lord by hearing, chanting, and so on. Translation: every part of their bodies, that's these forms of Vishnu that were seen by Brahma, from their feet to the top of their heads were fully decorated with fresh, tender garlands of tulasi leaves offered by devotees engaged in worshipping the Lord by the greatest pious activities, namely hearing and chanting. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Bhuri Punyavad Arpitai is significant in this verse. These forms of Vishnu were worshipped by those who had performed pious activities, sukritabihi, for many births, and who were constantly engaged in devotional service. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Bhakti, devotional service, is the engagement of those who have performed highly developed pious activities. The accumulation of pious activities has already been mentioned elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 12, 11, where Shukadeva Goswami says, one of Prabhupada's favorite verses, the last part, Krita Punya Punja, Itam Satam Brahma Sukhanubhutya Dasyam Gatanam Paradaivatena Maya Shratanam Naradarakena Sakam Vijru Krita Punya Punja. Translation. Those who are engaged in self-realization, appreciating the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, and those engaged in devotional service, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, as well as those who are under the clutches of Maya, thinking the Lord is an ordinary person, cannot understand that certain exalted personalities, after accumulating volumes of pious activities, are now playing with the Lord in friendship as cowherd boys. Now that's the previous chapter describing the cowherd boys. Their activities, this and that, and playing, and so Shukadeva Goswami, in a spontaneous expression of jubilation, how fortunate. And who can understand the degree of good fortune? And there's a similar statement by Brahma in the next chapter. That what he says in the next chapter is, who can understand how fortunate the Brijbasis are? And how do you repay them? Because look what you did with the siblings of Putana. You gave them liberation. So how are you going to reciprocate with the Brijbasis? And Vishwanath Chakravarti concludes in his purport he can't. So then, therefore, you just have to be satisfied with your own activities. When the satisfaction of their own activities is the reciprocation of this intimate love with Krishna. And that's the satisfaction. So it's not a reward, it's the reciprocation of love. Final paragraph. In our Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, there is a tamal tree that covers the entire corner of the courtyard. Before there was a temple, the tree was lying neglected. But now it has developed very luxuriantly, covering the whole corner of the courtyard. This is a sign of Bhuri Punya. Bhuri means profuse, abundant, many, many. It's a qualitative term. And a quantitative term. The Bhuri Punya. So that's what's in the verse. Bhuri Punya vat, or van, or possessing punya, buddhi punya, vat, arpitai, arpana, arpitai means worship. Yad karoshi, yad asnasi, yad jahosi, dadasi, yad tapasyasi konteya, tat korashramad, arpanam. Arpana was worship. So, buddhi, punyavat, arpitai. The persons who had decorated these Vishnu forms were such devotees. Buddhi punya devotees. Devotees that had performed abundant, unlimited, profuse punya. And anyone that's heard Srila Prabhupada's lectures knows this phrase, Krita Punya Punja, because he liked to refer to it, the cowherd boys. Shukadeva Goswami's appreciation of them. Krita, krit means to do. Punya, punja, they abundant, who knows how, unlimited. And because of that unlimited feature of their many lifetimes of such punya, they are now in this intimate relationship with Krishna. That the verse of Shukadeva says that even this one, that one, the other one, the other one, the other one, they can't understand. The pastimes of Krishna with his devotees in Vrindavan is out of sight. It's not something that you can gauge with some material calibration. It's transcendental. Transcendental intimacy of love. Transcendental intimacy of love. And Srimad Bhagavatam, narrating the way that it's being narrated by the person who is narrating it, Shukadeva Goswami, it provides us entrance into such intimacy of love. To understand it requires someone who understands it. So that is our great acharyas, who in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have received the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and know the secret or the method, the mystery, and they impart it. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gur Tvishe Namaha. So not only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not stipulate, as Krishna stipulates, surrender unto me then. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu most mercifully just said, please take it. No precondition. No precondition means, what about this Krita Punya Punja? What about that? That sounds like a precondition. Many lifetimes of pious activities. Or, again, this is Krishna, but in Bhagavad Gita the same prerequisite is there. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandava moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridha vrataha. persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So I want to read just the first paragraph of this purport. It's 728. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regular principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, gradually, they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees, for the association of great devotees. In the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. And practical application. So, few things. The pious activities could be taken in either one of two ways. The material pious activities, or the pious activities of hearing and chanting. Now, in the right in the verse, this is Prabhupada's translation, the pious activities such as hearing and chanting. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this reference to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where piety can mean one of three things: material piety, spiritual piety, and devotional piety. So, he's writing about unknowingly performing pious activity, agyata sukriti. So sukriti, or piety, is bhog unmukhi sukriti, that's his language, where material pious activities are performed. And the classic examples of this from Vedic culture is digging wells and planting trees by the side of the road. Pious activity. And one can name other things. Pious activity. And then there's moksha unmukhi sukriti. Piety sukriti that leads to moksha, and that's study of Vedanta Sutra, the classic. There may be others. And bhakti unmukhi sukriti is unknowingly engaged in some form of devotional service, taking prasadam, hearing the holy name, giving somebody directions, how do you get to your place, or something like that. The unknowingly doing some devotional service leads to knowingly engaged in devotional service, which is very similar to what's in the purport. And then devotional service with knowledge. Devotional service with knowledge is knowledge of who is Krishna, as opposed to the mistaken conception of who God is, or who Krishna is. And there's lots of mistaken conceptions, long lists of mistaken conceptions. They're out there. And sometimes they're in here. They're not just out there. And so this punya, supposing it means hearing and chanting. One who engages in hearing and chanting doesn't have the option to do impious activities on the material platform. It leads to, it brings one to the position of pious activities. Whether it's planting trees by the side of the road or digging wells, it's activities that are uplifting, proper conduct, dharma. So we observe as devotees sanatana dharma or varnashram dharma. Long discussion of this varnashram dharma topic. But minimally, according to Narada Muni, Canto 7, Chapter 10, you have to be at least human. To become a pure devotee, you have to become human. And there's human characteristics, and there are these piety things. So whether it means this or it means that, that is to say, the spiritual hearing, chanting piety, or the other worldly piety, just say it's hearing and chanting piety. The other isn't off the table. It's not missing. So someone, in other words, someone may have lots of sinful activities. They can engage in hearing and chanting. They should not go on with sinful activities because that will diminish the potency effect of the hearing and chanting. They should, like Jagai Madhai, no longer engage in sinful activity. Anyway, one leads to the other, or one leads to the other. The essence is the spiritual activity, the spiritual piety. So, safe to assume the cowherd boys or the persons who have decorated the forms of Vishnu for many, abundantly many pious activities they have performed. Buri punyatvam arpitai. They worship the Supreme Lord by decorating Him in various ways. A series of lectures, it's been set up automatically by whoever set up the system. I'm listening to lectures of Prabhupada's arrival addresses in this place, that place, all around the world, follows a schedule all around the world. And on many occasions, the starting point of his little public address, and generally they're very short, thank you for this nice reception, he makes some comments about who and what or whatever the details, and the very next thing is, I'm very happy to see how you're worshiping the deity very nicely. I mean, he could speak anything, but sometimes it was, you know, the basic philosophy, but often prior to that is appreciation of nicely decorating the deity. I'm very happy to see you're maintaining the standard, and then would give the details like we're hearing in this verse. The decoration, making nice offerings of foodstuffs and flowers and ornaments and dresses. I can see that you're maintaining the standard of worship here very nicely. I'm very happy. I mean, you could hear the pujaris dancing in the background. They were being appreciated for their service. But it's not just, well, he wanted this. He wanted to bring us to help qualify us for what this, what's being described here. The deity worship is to bring us to the position of directly worshipping this other form, the Swarup, besides the Archa Vigraha. Is to qualify us, Buri Punyavat Arpitai. And after many, 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 many Krita Punya Punja lifetimes, then one may be eligible for this, because the context is chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 14. It's the cowherd boys, but any of the residents of Vrindavan, that Madhurya feature is not the only requirement for sure, but it's an essential requirement to be eligible to receive such mercy. And therefore it's not unimportant. We'll say it positively. It's very important that we do these things that we're doing, given to us in disciplic succession by the predecessor acharyas, not only Srila Prabhupada, but the predecessor acharyas, to abundantly engage the devotees, to make us wet wood into dry wood. And the emphasis certainly is upon hearing and chanting. And then following the emphasis upon hearing and chanting comes the following of regulative principles. That's how Prabhupada introduced the Hare Krishna movement. It didn't start with regulative principles. It started with hearing and chanting, to help make the wet wood dry wood, till the dry wood, the in-between wet and dry wood was ready for regulative principles, and then follow the regulative principles. So, same when we introduce people to Krishna consciousness, like distributing books. When we distribute books, we go to all kinds of places where people are doing everything but observing regulative principles. Everything but. And should we be doing that? Maybe, they'll make a fence or something or something or something. It's that it's our disciplic succession, acharyas have encouraged us to do this because it's the beginning of their becoming qualified to accept bhakti by the hearing and chanting. Now some people, there's the whole range of people out there, and some people, they're eager for it. They're searching for it. And then there's some people that are running the other direction. But they can be captured also. And then there's people in between. It's the extension of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy to the most fallen, and then there are degrees of most fallen or fallen, and then over on the other side of piety, and in many cases people that have some piety, they're fixed in a misconception and they don't want to move from it. Often an impersonal misconception. They don't want to move from it. They don't want to move from it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita considered, I've got everybody covered except those people. They're tough customers. But in any case, the object of his mercy was everybody. The jungle animals and the trees and plants and pious and impious and everybody. Everybody's eligible. The approach might be a little different depending upon eligibility, but so that mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu flows so nicely from the Bhagavatam and the chanting of the holy name and the application of the chanting of the holy name from the message of Bhagavatam. And we can't expect somebody, although it happens, people that don't know anything about anything, and they take home with them, the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, and they dive in and swim around. Can happen. Mercy. But so, chant to be happy. Take prasadam. And hear from qualified persons. And then this last paragraph is interesting. If I'm not mistaken, the present generation of the tree that was in the courtyard, or is in the courtyard, this tamarind tree, or excuse me, tamal tree, it's the next generation. The older tamal tree died, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Left. So then a graft and another tamal tree. But I remember very clearly in the installation of Krishna Balaram that tree was really scrawny. And then in the course of just hearing, like this guy over here, I was really sad when they clipped, because the tree was, anyway, trees growing back. But luxuriantly, and this is the result of Buri Punya in the courtyard of the Krishna Balaram temple. Abundant hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting, and hearing and chanting, and, minimally the 24-hour kirtan party, but so many other hearing and chanting opportunities. So if a tree can luxuriantly develop, then why not spirit, soul in human form? Luxuriantly develop in ways that would never have happened in this lifetime without that abundant hearing and chanting. And proper following of regulations and everything else. So we'll continue tomorrow with Krishna's pastimes. Any discussion? Yeah.
I have a couple of things. In the verse that Prabhupada quotes, which you said is one of his favorite verses, could you explain the second line which says, Dasyam Gatanam Paradaivatena, which Prabhupada says, or is translated as, those engaged in devotional service accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master, and towards the end, cannot understand that certain exalted personalities are now playing with the Lord as in friendship as cowherd boys. So three categories of people that can't understand. One is those engaged in self-realization, appreciating Brahman effulgence. The second is those engaged in devotional service, accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master. And then those who are under the clutches of Maya cannot understand. So my question is, it's fairly clear why the impersonalists or the materialists cannot understand.
Say it again slower.
It is clear why the impersonalists and the materialists cannot understand that these exalted persons are now playing with the Lord in friendship.
Okay.
But it's not so clear why those in the Dasya state, or those engaged in devotional service accepting the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Master,
it has to do with the Aishvarya mood compared to the Madhurya mood. That's what it's about. Is that okay? Those who are worshippers in the Aishvarya mood can't understand the Madhurya mood. That's what it means. Now, there are persons in the Madhurya mood that see Krishna as Master. That's not what it means. It's the Aishvarya feature, the Vaikuntha mood. They can't understand the Madhurya mood. Should I say it again?
No, I'm trying to think in my condition as we are practicing devotional service, we're being trained to become...
That's not what it means. So, is that all right?
So let me ask this question.
We're mixed devotees, we're not pure devotees. But supposing someone becomes a pure devotee, in the Vaikuntha mood. Now, that's not us. We're not pure devotees in the Vaikuntha mood. Neither of those. Now, somebody that's practicing devotional service, not yet a pure devotee, in the Madhurya mode, we can't fully understand either. But that's not what the meaning is. The meaning is, this is my understanding, the Vaikuntha mood, seeing the Lord as Master.
I feel like I have some degree of understanding of this friendship mood, but it's obviously from this verse, it's not much at all.
Excuse me.
Maybe theoretically anyway.
Yeah, theoretically. That's different. Okay, next.
And the other question is, in this chapter of the Bhagavatam, these are the final verses that Srila Prabhupada translated.
Yes.
And gave purports on.
Final chapter. This is it.
The last few verses.
This is it, the skinny book here. That's how the original version divided things. After that is the followers of Prabhupada, and this is the last one. Yes.
So what we're hearing is when Prabhupada was laying on his bed.
Yes, you weren't here for class yesterday, but we said it yesterday. Yes. And we spent some time just closing our eyes, imagining where Prabhupada was coming from when he spoke these purports. Okay? Others?
Maharaj, when we are there in your class, like Srimad Bhagavatam class yesterday, today, just hearing the class and seeing that by hearing and chanting, there's so much of mercy, just continuing with faith. That also I was just thinking that like Krishna consciousness is a happy process to receive mercy, but then sometimes it just feels like seeing sometimes what the devotees go through. I feel like I have some kind of a disconnect.
You feel like what?
I have a disconnect sometimes.
You have a disconnect?
Yeah, because scripture is saying that if you follow the process and Krishna's mercy is there, but sometimes it's just too hard to actually see or feel the mercy of like Krishna. Probably I know that I have this conception that, oh, Krishna's mercy should look like this. Or
yes, we have an expectation what Krishna's mercy should look like. Because if we were Krishna, we wouldn't do it the way Krishna does it.
Yeah. So, like my question is that how can I like really deepen that conviction that no matter like what the externalities might look like or whatever it is, like Krishna's mercy is there, Krishna's protection is there.
Absolutely. Now, what your statement is, one way of describing what your statement is the position of faith. According to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the 9 stages of bhakti are different stages of faith. Another way of describing what those 9 stages are stages of faith and faith and faith and faith. And the fully blossomed faith is prema. And then you go down and down, you go Adau Shraddha, faith to associate with devotees, faith to practice what devotees practice, faith to continue to go on this path of thorns of our own anarthas and how to get there. Like, that's where we are, and our picture, your picture, my picture, our picture of what that should look like doesn't match our conception of what it should look like. What's going on is, so that's a statement of our faith. And one who has greater faith, they don't see like that. Or you could say it in a different way. The degree of covering that we're currently under. Say it the other way, the degree of faith. That's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's description. So we struggle. Or it shouldn't look like that. How can Krishna be kind if da-da-da-da-da-da? I mean, they're a nice devotee, and look at their struggle, and shouldn't look like that. I'm not sure about all this. I'm not so comfortable with the way Krishna is purifying certain people.
Can we practically do anything about it, or just continue with faith that like one day we will reach to that point when we are able to see?
Well, something that will certainly assist in that journey is association of those who are very elevated. Just, like, hold on to their dhoti or sari, or hold on to their hand. And it gives strength beyond your strength. Faith beyond your limited faith. Okay? Bottom line, Krishna's kind. And he knows best. Better than good. He's all good. Okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Something I've been trying to get a better grasp of is using discrimination while preaching. Prabhupada writes that, those coming in the light of Narada Muni, we preach pure bhakti, not mixed bhakti. So as a preacher, when you're interacting with different audiences, those who may be attached in certain ways, how the preaching to present in other words, how does one evaluate how much one can take? Because if one presents bhakti in such a way as an absolute principle, but the audience is not able to receive that, particularly I'm thinking in terms of like renunciation. If one preaches too strong, as an eternal principle, or as a spiritual principle, renunciation, then one might get dejected. But at the same time, if one doesn't present the facts as they are, then one continues to facilitate that living entity's absorption in illusion. So as a preacher, how do you, is it from Super Soul, or?
Yes.
Can you share some guidelines so that one doesn't overly, inhibit one from taking up bhakti, but also not kind of water it down?
Well, let's say there's 3 factors, minimal. We each have our nature. That's one factor. Some persons purposefully they shock people. And some others, go the other direction. So that's and one may be effective this way, and one may be effective that way. It's not like right and wrong. We have our nature. Then another factor is experience. From experience we can learn. If our light's on, we're considering not just in a fruitive sense, but in a truly compassionate sense. I want to help people make the next step. So the question I have, my dear mind, what's the capability of this individual to make the next step? Now we may not get it right, but at least the question of what's a doable next step for the person is sensible. And it may take a little bit of getting to know the person before we can have a sense of what the next step is. And therefore, as we're getting to know the person, we can say something that's just very broad. We're not compromising, just very broad, and get to know the person. So we'll know better what's the next step for this person. So and then the third is our own purity. That's something that makes a huge difference. According to purity, one will get better inspiration from Super Soul and strength to help when you say something, the person can go with you that next step. So that's primarily where our attention should go, is our own purity project. And then also knowing ourselves, that's back to the first one. But then being able to customize, even if it's spontaneous, but customize our personality match the need. I'll give a little example just because it just recently happened. I met an owner of a yoga studio, lady, middle-aged lady. And in the course of the conversation, it was kind of like, she asked, what's the next step for me? The door was open. I didn't have to knock. She opened the door. So in the course of the conversation, I was reminded that 2 years ago, one of her students, now a teacher of yoga in her studio, asked me for some instruction for the owner. And I asked some questions and thought, ask her to be vegetarian. And she became vegetarian, but kind of not completely. She cut some corners. So that came out in the course of the conversation. So I said, 2 years ago, and you've been following, now become completely. Next step. Yes, I have that intention. Okay. It was comfortable next step for her. And then I said, after you do that, please consider what as another next step. Not now, but when you're squeaky clean with vegetarian, consider offering your food to Krishna. So now I was out on a limb because we hadn't spoken about Krishna. And then she said, I've been practicing Buddhism for years and I worship Buddha. And you're saying offer to Krishna. So what should I do? So we spend about 20 minutes and on Buddha's position, etc., etc., etc. And he doesn't say offer, but Krishna says offer, and anyway, so I get it. So then, okay, then next, it's the step that comes after becoming squeaky clean with your vegetarian. Then you're going to have to make a decision about offering your food to Krishna or offering your food to Buddha. No. With the understanding that it's her nature, she wants to do the right thing. So I don't have to say, and at this stage, then she's, am I going to accept this person or not? Am I going to accept the instruction from this person or not? So it's just intuitive and relational. And then, there's a lot of responsibility for self-purity to make it possible for this lady to, her lifelong has been a Buddhist, to now offer her food to Krishna. But there are things in place, reading Bhagavad Gita and study. She had this student lead a study group of Bhagavad Gita for her staff. So she's like into Bhagavad Gita. She and the staff. So it's a matter of time from Buddha to Krishna. So it's just better to attract than to push, I find. When people voluntarily make a step, it's more sustainable than when they get pushed and they make a step. And then maybe later resent they got pushed and they made the step and it wasn't their step. That sometimes happens. Subal, we're going to take 2 more questions and end.
I was appreciating very much Prabhupada's last part of the paragraph in which he gives the example of the Tamal Krishna, the Tamal tree, and how by this Krita Punya Punja, it flourished from being struggling physically to being very, very beautiful and expansive. And I was just thinking also, you mentioned in the beginning of the class that that a symptom, if one is not fully engaged in hearing and chanting, or that those activities, then one may not be free from delusion. I can't remember exactly how you put it, but but there was a correlation of being illusion and the proper application of hearing and chanting. So to be able to flourish, just like the Tamal tree, the application of constantly hearing and chanting has to be there. Or when it's the roller coaster up and down, hearing and chanting, not steady, anishtata bhakti, then the experiences of struggle and misery or suffering or things like that, obstacles, is a direct manifestation.
I'm really curious where this train is going.
Sorry?
I'm really curious where this train is going.
Well, I like to clarify, not just for myself, so also being able to explain it, because in one sense we are trying to tell people like really, there's no alternative to being happy and balanced and flourish in this world, but to take to the process of this Krita Punya Punja. So, so to be able to explain it, there's a very direct correlation that, you know, this constant engagement will allow this complete flourishment or even materially to be free from this klesha agni, to be free from all material sufferings like that. So my question is to...
Here we go, here's the train ride.
To explain the correlation, you know, like that, to establish that correlation.
Okay, 3 things. The term that applies to the tree is Buri Punya. The term that applies to the cowherd boys is Krita Punya Punja. Next. It's not, the correlation is not just uninterrupted or many, you know, or regular, but the consciousness behind the behavior. Bahu janma kadi yadi shravana kirtana tabo tana, you know the verse? Chaitanya Charitamrita. Many, 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 many lifetimes one can and not get. So the consciousness behind has everything to do with the correlation, has everything to do with offense or offense-less. The consciousness behind the activity. The activity helps us become cleansed, Chaitadarpana Marjanam, not only the holy name, but the hearing and chanting in general. And the offenselessness, or the consciousness behind those activities. We'll say the same thing in Jiva Goswami's language, because I like Jiva Goswami. This Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam, the Anushilanam, breaking it apart in its different elements. There's the behavior part, the moving part, and there's the non-moving part, and that's the absorption of the mind, which is right in this purport here, this samadhi stage. So the mature state, the correlation is the degree of absorption. And the degree of absorption is only going to be possible not just by many, 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 but in the human form of life, the consciousness behind the many, many, many. The behavior is the tip of the iceberg, and what's below the tip of the iceberg determines the behaviors, the consistency and the inconsistency, the unsteady to become steady, to then come to taste and asakti, and so the consciousness behind. That's the correlation is not just volume, but the conscious with volume, then become more aware of the offenses and carefully guard against the offenses. And then finally comes the following of the perfected souls, because our Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process is Ragamarg. Now, you understand what I'm saying? So, you know, that's to get to that stage, do we require that following? We have to have the eligibility to do that following and have an attraction for it. Otherwise, you can be the goddess of fortune and not be able to enter into Krishna's pastimes, like these fortunate cowherd boys and gopis. mood has to be from the mercy of those who have that mood, which is an answer to your question. Okay? Now, I have 2 requests before you speak. Please don't say, thank you very much for the class. And please speak slowly. He's going to say, he's like, I've been gagged, Maharaj, you gagged me.
This is, I feel like so ungrateful when I want to say it, but so that's all I have to say. On the negative side, I feel ungrateful, but in response to Acharya Nishya Prabhu's, in answering his question, you were mentioning we have to focus on our own.
We have to do what?
Focus on our own purity.
Okay.
Purity is the force we hear. That's the main principle.
Thank you for speaking slowly, because then I can understand you.
So I kind of guess I have 2 aspects of that question. One is you were mentioning yesterday.
One is what?
You were mentioning yesterday.
Yeah.
The pastime where some, I think, I don't remember who, but some devotees or somebody was trying to measure the purity of Brahma, Lord Brahma.
Ah, yes.
And,
yes.
So there's many pastimes like that. When Haridasa Kaur purified,
slowly.
When Haridasa Kaur purified the prostitute,
yes,
it's described she became a pure devotee, exalted devotees. Many people will come to see her. And Durasa Muni, he also tried to measure the purity. There's so many pastimes where, and so my question is regarding one nice quote. It says
regarding what?
A nice quote. It
a
says,
nice quote. Okay.
I speak in quotes always, of course. It says, humility is a strange thing.
Humility is a strange thing.
The minute you think you've got it, you've lost it.
The minute you think you got it, you lost it.
So my question is, how can one harmonize the understanding, it appears to be a contradiction that I'm lower than a worm and stool.
More than what?
Lower
than the worm and stool. Okay.
And at the same time, focus on your own purity, or how does that conception work?
Easy.
I'm pure now.
Easy. Ready? Take the microphone from him. Okay. Each time I visited Jagannath Puri, which is in conducted gatherings there, the same theme arises. That is, extreme, amazing humility amongst Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, and their eagerness to get the fullness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, or Krishna's mercy, which is like stop and go. Seems like contradiction, but it's not. So, lower than the worm and stool, or any other expression of humility, Lord Chaitanya confirmed twice. Take Rupa Goswami instead of Krishnadas. Rupa Goswami received the fullness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. He bestowed it upon him. And that's a lot of mercy. It's like a lot of mercy. And he was abjectly humble. He wouldn't sit with the devotees. When they asked him to speak, he didn't want to speak. He didn't feel qualified to speak in front of the exalted devotees. When he was ordered to do so, he did so. And from his mouth came strings of pearls, showers of nectar. So, it's not a contradiction. It's just, it's the nature, it's the mysterious nature of the spiritual world, or Krishna consciousness. He didn't think he possessed humility. Lord Chaitanya admonished Sanatana, your humility is causing me pain. Stop being so humble. I'm embracing you because I derive happiness from embracing you. So please don't run away. Come here. He ran away. Lord Chaitanya caught him and embraced him. It's just the enthusiasm for mercy and humility, the saying I'm lower than a worm and stool, and then writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. He understood what writing of Chaitanya Charitamrita meant. It's like a blind man seeing the stars in the sky, or a lame man climbing a mountain, or a fool understanding conclusive truths of the Vedas because of faith, implicit faith. So that's the mystery. Sounds contradictory, but it's where contradictions become resolved, because this behavior is inconsistent with that behavior. It's a mystery, worldly mystery, and that's similar to what's being said, this Krita Punya Punja verse. Who can understand? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.